When Canadian producer Sidney Newman created Doctor Who in 1963, he wanted the new science fiction programme to be heavily educational and focus on historical events, avoiding the bug-eyed aliens and monsters of popular science fiction at the time. This desire would manifest in a number of serials that Doctor Who fans refer to as pure historicals. Stories set in the past without any science fiction elements outside of the Doctor and the TARDIS. As of recording, there have been 12 televised pure historicals, with the last being season 19's Black Orchid. The popularity of the Daleks in Doctor Who's second serial saw a growing emphasis on science fiction, rather than purely historical stories as Newman had intended. This eventually led to the disappearance of these pure historical stories, but over the years Doctor Who fans have repeatedly clamoured for their return. But are they right to want these stories to come back? One of the most important questions to ask is, why were pure historicals dropped in the first place? To answer this, we need to travel back to 1966 with the production of season 4's The Highlanders. Writer Elwyn Jones was keen to write a historical adventure for the series, but script editor Jerry Davies and producer Innes Lloyd wanted to phase out Doctor Who stories set in Earth's past. This was because they felt that these stories were unpopular amongst viewers, an idea strengthened by lower viewership ratings for a number of pure historicals. This led to historical stories becoming more sci-fi based with aliens and monsters involved. This practice began in 1967 with The Evil of the Daleks, and has lasted to this day, with 1982's Black Orchid the only pure historical after the introduction of this unofficial and unenforced policy. Departing from pure historicals was absolutely the right move, and it likely ensured Doctor Who's long-term survival, even though The Highlanders managed to achieve roughly similar ratings to its two prior serials, The 10th Planet and Power of the Daleks. Pure historicals tend to have quite limited story potential. There's only so much they can do, meaning you get a few retreads in different settings. For example, multiple William Hartnell historicals featured key plot threads where the Doctor is mistaken for someone else. This happened in The Romans, The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, and The Gunfighters, two of which are in the same season. Now, plots are recycled all the time. Almost every story in history can be boiled down to just 7 types, as theorised by Christopher Booker in his controversial 2004 book, The 7 Basic Plots. It gets a bit tiring to keep going back to the well of the Doctor being mistaken for someone else. Even the pure historicals without these similar plots have issues, specifically pacing issues. Due to the lack of any kind of sci-fi aspect, you end up with a lot of people standing around and talking. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because sometimes people standing around and talking can be absolutely brilliant if it's written well. But that's the problem. Without the comforting blanket of a monster stomping around, it becomes harder to pull off. You need the best possible writer for it because you have less to work with and the audience is more likely to get bored with it. However, sci-fi plots can actually derail historical stories if they're shoehorned into a story that doesn't need them. The biggest example of this is Series 11's Rosa. Rosa places the Doctor and her companions in 1955 Alabama, where space racist Krasko is attempting to send Rosa Parks back in time before she can kickstart the civil rights movement. This plot is fine on paper, but during the episode it all becomes a bit muddled, with Krasko's full intentions a bit confusing and underdeveloped. It ends up bloating the episode needlessly, becoming an unnecessary plot element that detracts from the main story of the episode. It almost feels like writer Mallory Blackman wrote it as a pure historical, but showrunner Chris Chibnall came in and added the science fiction elements to make it more safe for the sci-fi brand of Doctor Who. Rosa, along with other Series 11 historical Demons of the Punjab, did in fact cause an increase in calls for pure historicals to return, because Rosa is a prime example of how not to do a historical episode. The character and plotline of Krasko could be easily removed from the episode without really changing anything. Instead, the episode could have been a pure historical about the butterfly effect, with something slightly different happening that leads to Rosa not getting on the bus at the exact right time. So the Doctor and her companions have to set history back on track. You know, basically the exact same story, but without the space racist greaser from the 50th century clogging up the works. This tightens up the story, giving it more focus and preventing delightful plot holes such as what was Krasko's actual plan? And where did Krasko go? And by delightful, I mean absolutely infuriating. On the other hand, some historicals definitely need sci-fi plots, because they help to illustrate the themes of the episode. Look no further than the Series 12 episode Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, which admittedly has one of the worst Doctor Who titles of all time. In this episode, the Doctor and her companions find themselves in New York during the middle of Nikola Tesla's feud with Thomas Edison. It turns out that the alien species, the Scythera, are trying to capture Tesla and use them to fix their ship, which is itself made up of scavenged parts of other alien species ships. This mirrors how Edison stole ideas from other people and passed them off as his own for his benefit and profit. Having the sci-fi plot helps to tell that story by drawing those parallels between the two and reinforcing the overall message. Similarly, the Series 5 episode Vincent and the Doctor also uses a sci-fi plot to drive its message home. In Vincent and the Doctor and Amy meet Vincent van Gogh, who is plagued by a monster only he can see. This symbolises Vincent's battle with depression in a physical way we can easily understand and visualise. Nobody else can understand how he feels, just like nobody else can see the monster. It's a simple way of illustrating how depression is invisible and only the sufferer truly understands its impact on their life. The monster isn't supposed to be memorable or crucial to the story, but the theme of depression wouldn't really work properly without it. I personally believe these two episodes strike the perfect balance between sci-fi and historical, because they don't depend on the sci-fi slant. Instead, it enhances and improves them, making them work as intended. Doctor Who's 2005 revival introduced a new regular type of historical, dubbed by fans as celebrity historicals. These stories are historical stories revolving around specific famous historical figures, although they all have science fiction elements. This type of historical first appeared with Series 1's The Unquiet Dead, which heavily involved iconic writer Charles Dickens. Celebrity historicals would go on to feature Shakespeare, Winston Churchill and Agatha Christie, among many others. Stories from the original run of Doctor Who, such as the Romans and Marco Polo, also featured well-known historical characters, but with the phasing out of pure historicals, these kinds of stories would also find themselves disappearing. Much like sci-fi historicals, celebrity historicals give writers a good and easy hook to write the episode around. Putting a famous historical figure at the centre of the episode does half the work for you, especially if there is some kind of interesting, unexplained mystery involved in their life. A perfect example of this is The Unicorn and the Wasp, where the Doctor and Donna find themselves in a murder mystery alongside Agatha Christie in 1926. On the 3rd of December 1926, Agatha Christie disappeared from her house, with her car being found abandoned above a chalk quarry. After 10 days of public outcry and frantic, in-depth searching, the author was found in a hotel in Harrogate, with no memory of where she had been during that time frame. To this day, it is still unknown what exactly happened to Christie, so writer Gareth Roberts pounced upon this mystery when developing The Unicorn and the Wasp. The episode uses Agatha Christie's disappearance as a major plot thread, with the revelation being that she battled a giant alien wasp resulting in amnesia for 10 days, before the Doctor drops her off at a hotel, thus explaining the mystery in a way only Doctor Who can. This is another example of how science fiction can enhance a historical story, because it provides an explanation for such a mysterious part of a well-known historical figure's life. A similar practice was employed in Robert's previous episode, The Shakespeare Code, which centred around offering a science fiction explanation for the mystery of Shakespeare's supposed lost play, Love's Labour's Won. Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror also embraced this style of storytelling to some extent, taking inspiration from Tesla's claims of extraterrestrial life. It also provides an explanation for rumours and stories of still unexplained lightning-like flashes in the sky at Wardenclyffe just after the funding was withdrawn. The episode suggests that these flashes were in fact the Doctor using the tower to repel the Skithra invasion, which is once again a very Doctor Who explanation. Celebrity historicals often work better than pure historicals because they provide a way of channeling the sci-fi plots needed to provide a Doctor Who feeling to the story. Where Rosa falls short, episodes like The Unicorn and the Wasp and Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror thrive. Would it be possible to pull off a celebrity historical without any sci-fi? Yeah, almost certainly. As I stated earlier, Rosa and Demons of the Punjab could have been much better that way, because their sci-fi elements felt unnecessary and shoehorned in. But it still remains to be seen if a pure historical would capture the same attention and appreciation other, more tried and true story types are able to achieve. Perhaps the doubts of Davis and Lloyd have become so ingrained within the show's very DNA that all of their successors have become too afraid to try a pure historical because of the viewership, or lack thereof, it might receive. When it comes to pure historicals, I personally believe there is a lot of misplaced hope due to nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses. Most of the pure historicals of Classic Who weren't even that good, partly due to their bad pacing and complex, bloated casts, but also because of their serialised nature, leaving their total runtimes at least twice as long as most New Who episodes. However, now that Doctor Who has a higher budget, allowing for higher quality writing, acting and production, it's not wrong to think that it might be time to try experimenting with pure historicals once again. We've started seeing glimpses of what pure historicals could be like in New Who, and it's been fairly promising. Current showrunner Chris Chibnall has even stated his desire to make the show more educational, much like Sidney Newman's original intent all the way back in 1963. But the problem remains that Doctor Who found its identity elsewhere, with the bug-eyed monsters it tried so desperately to avoid. It's easy to write a generic time travel story without further science fiction being involved. But it's much harder to write a Doctor Who story without science fiction, as it has become one of the most important and recognisable aspects of the show. Pure historicals are a relic of Doctor Who's past, when it was still finding its feet with a season-long budget worth about 10 minutes of a New Who episode. It would have to take something special, with a very special writer, to successfully revive the pure historical, as the sci-fi and celebrity elements are the main attraction of current Doctor Who episodes set in the past. But what do you think? Should pure historicals return? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.